Hey everyone, hello, welcome to this online meetup. My name is Max Katz, and today we have an awesome uh, co-host and speaker, Brian, and from Okta, and he is a workflow specialist. And I'll be in the background. I'll be looking at chat, helping with any other issues. But Brian, I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Max. Yeah, so my name is Brian. I am on a team called the Product Acceleration Team at Okta. So generally we help kind of foster the introduction and adoption of generally new Okta products, but I actually came to Okta with workflows when Okta acquired the technology about 4 years ago. So I've been working with workflows for 5 or so years now. And I really love it. I'm biased, but it's my favorite Okta product. So I'm happy to have you all with us today. Just wanted to mention, make sure to follow this Crowdcast page. Max hosts a lot of really awesome events with people from the community and also on his own. So make sure to follow and you can be notified about upcoming events and join us again in the future. Yeah, with that being said, is to kind of help give folks an idea of what you can use workflows for. Most Okta customers should have access to 5 free flows to get started, but we hear from some folks that they're not really sure how to dive in or where to get started. I kind of think of it like, I just moved from an apartment to a house and my parents got me a big complete toolkit and I'm not handy at all. So I opened it up and I was kind of like, well, what the heck do I do with this thing? I wish you would have just given me whiskey. But I kind of think of workflows in the same way. It's not like a checkbox, step-by-step form where you just turn it on and then it does stuff. It's kind of a whole toolbox that we give you to use. So in a similar sense, as you gain familiarity with the tools that are available and kind of what they can do together, really it's your creativity that's kind of the limit of what you can accomplish. But today we're going to build together kind of a basic notification flow. And I think this is a nice kind of low-hanging fruit to get started with workflows, because it's really a nice and easy win for your organization to be able to get real-time dynamic notifications about all sorts of things that might be happening in your Okta org. In this case, we're going to build a kind of welcome message for new users. So when a user gets activated, we will shoot them a message welcoming them, as well as shooting one to their manager to let them know that they have a new employee who's joined and to go say hello and see if they need any help. This is hopefully kind of a building block for you. This can totally be customized. You could, in the future, maybe you want to build a notification if a user reports suspicious activity and you want to notify your security team in a channel, or perhaps wipe the user's sessions or put them in a privileged group. But yeah, hopefully this is kind of a nice overview and low-hanging fruit here. It's my first time presenting on Max's platform here, so you'll have to forgive me if I have any issues here, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will just kind of go through a quick overview for those of you who have not seen workflows before, kind of what it entails at a high level. So when you open the workflows console from your admin org, this is what you'll see. We have a nice homepage here that has a lot of resources to get started. videos, links to documentation, links to tips that Max does a great job writing, how-to videos, things like that. Free training that I highly recommend everyone checks out. One special link here that I'd like to point out, it's also the call to action link at the bottom of our presentation here today. This is for office hours. And this is an effort that my team helps host, where maybe if you're kind of diving into workflows a little more and you want a little bit of help finding out how a certain card works, or running an idea past us to see if we think it could be achievable, or just getting pointed in the right direction. We host these a few times a week and would love to see you there. So that being said, I'll go ahead and show you quickly what our end result today is going to look like. So we're going to build something like this, and essentially the tools that we're kind of going to be using, we're going to kick off our workflow using an event. We're going to use the user activated event in Okta. And then we'll do some things like read the user who is activated to get some more information from their profile, such as their manager, their first and last names. We can use that. We'll kind of use those to write some dynamic and custom messages. Then we'll go ahead and send messages and read users in Slack to get the messages out to the right folks. So we'll go ahead and just start by building a new flow. And essentially every flow will start with some kind of an event. We have many connectors to other services, and there's events in those systems that can kick off flows as well. Can also run flows on a schedule. You can even trigger a flow by exposing it as an API endpoint. So you can call it from basically any service out there that you might have. Today, we're going to go ahead and use an Okta event. And I'm going to use the user activated event. So once we get this set up, this flow will kick off anytime a user in my Okta tenant has been activated. So easy enough. We'll see here there's a number of different outputs that come with the event when it's fired. Information about what the event type was, when it happened. You can see if an admin activated the user, you'll see information about who did that. You can also get information about the user who was activated. But as you can see, there's somewhat limited information here about the Okta user. You have their display name, their ID, and things like that. But I'd like to get some more information, like being able to pull their first name out of their profile to write the message, being able to look at their manager, etc. So in order to do that, we use an app action with the Okta connector. And we'll go ahead and read user. And so when you pull this up, there will be a initial screen here where you can select fields that you want to retrieve. In this case, I definitely want probably the first and last name of the user. And I'm also going to scroll down and get their manager from their profile, their manager ID, so we can look them up and let them know about the new user as well. You can always find this again if you need to add more fields or remove them by hitting choose fields. And that'll pull up that same dialog. So in this case, we probably don't really need most of this stuff. So just to clean up what we're looking at, I'll go ahead and get rid of these. So the user interface in workflows is driven by kind of a drag and drop mapping. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Okta user who is activated. I'm going to take their ID and drag it into this read user. So now what we have is a very basic flow. Every time a user is activated, we're just going to read them and grab these attributes out of their profile. So far, so good. And in my case, I love Slack and I use Slack, but I just want to point out ahead of time that there are other options. If you want to send notifications through some other service, we have a built-in connector to Microsoft Teams that you can leverage quite easily. We also have connectors for things like Gmail, Office 365 Mail, and similar to the API endpoint that kind of lets you expose workflows to any service, we also just have something called the API connector that allows you to make HTTP requests to any service and authenticate. So,
Brian, sorry, I'm gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think you can maybe make your screen just a bit bigger? I think some folks are saying that it's a little bit hard to see. Yeah. Oh, perfect.
That helpful? Cool.
Yeah. And also, folks, I put it in the chat, but you can also go full screen. So there's in the lower right corner, you can go into full screen, and then so it's going to be also will help you see. But yeah, this definitely helps. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry. Cool. And Zach, I see you were saying that you don't see some of the information on the read user card. I did skip a bit of a step. I'll just cover this very quickly so you know what to do. Essentially, when you add a connector to an app, you'll also need to establish a connection. So the way that works for the Okta connector, go ahead and hit this new connection. And so you'll type your domain, and it kind of gives you some pointers. So mine would be workflows.oie.oktapreview.com. And then to retrieve these two values that you need to set up the connection. Oh, shoot. Hopefully that was pretty quick. We'll go ahead and there's a application called Workflows OAuth. And this is the one that you want to use to set up your connection. And this should be in your org there. You'll go ahead and go to the authentication tab, and you can just copy and paste these values here. And that should allow you to get your connection set up. So hopefully that helps you out, Zach. Let me know if you have any questions. So cool. With that being said, hopefully everyone can go set up their Okta connection quickly. We can allow a moment to do that. Awesome. Thanks for the article, Max. Cool. And so the next thing I am going to do is I'm going to start adding in advance some of the actions that I think I'll need for my Slack notification. In this case, I am actually going to use a read user card, and I'm going to look up the Slack profile by the user's email. This isn't always entirely necessary, but depending on how you have your Slack set up, it can be helpful to just actually grab the Slack GUID, like the Slack user ID that's specific to Slack when you're trying to send messages. So that's just kind of the reason that I'm doing that here. So in this case, typically the alternate ID for an Okta user is going to be their email. So now I just have these two read users, and they're kind of getting information that I might need later on in my flow for both the activated user's Okta profile as well as their Slack profile. And so from here, we can probably go ahead and start kind of constructing our first message. So far today, we've only worked with these app actions. And similar to events, there's a lot of different actions that you can take across a lot of different applications that we support natively. Send mail, you can lock devices in Jamf, you can work with tickets in Jira. There's quite a lot you can do. But the other side of the coin, we have a lot of built-in functions. And these are kind of the tools that you can use to create or manipulate text, work with numbers or dates, build like JSON objects or parse them out, or work with the responses that you're getting from your services. There's quite a lot you can do in here. Today, we're going to just use a pretty basic but powerful function called text compose. Essentially, this is like a free-form window where you can type text in, and you can also drag values in from other cards. So you can just do something like, say, I will dynamically grab the first name of each activated user so their message is kind of nice and customized to them. And say something like, hi, first name, welcome to the company. Hope you have a great first day. Reach out to your manager. We'll just grab the manager that's listed in the user's profile attributes and stick that here too. Cool, so just like that, we're able to kind of build a custom message. You can grab variables from any of the other cards or functions in workflows. And for sake of legibility in my flow, I'm going to go ahead and, the name of this here is just output. This can get a bit confusing if you have a long flow with a lot of cards and you just see something called output, way further down as you're building. To kind of ease that confusion, I'm going to click here on this kind of drop-down menu on the right of the output, and I'll hit customize. I'm just going to give it a different display name. So in this case, I'll just call it like new hire message so that it's clear which message is for the new hire and which message is for the manager. So excellent. At this point, we have one of our messages kind of built up, ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just send it as a direct message to that user. As you may have seen here, there's a lot of other actions you can take against Slack. You can add users to channels, remove users, join channels, rename them. Quite popular to send messages to a channel, like let's say in a security alerting kind of scenario. Maybe you want to just let a team know that they need to investigate something. In this case, I'm just going to send a DM because this is kind of a personalized message. I'm going to use the user ID from Slack, since I should hopefully have that here from my read user card. And so this should all be fine. And I'm going to grab this user ID from Slack that I retrieved earlier, map it over here. And just to note, when you hover over some of these inputs, you're able to see with this kind of X-ray line where it maps back to. That's a handy feature there. And we'll just grab our new message, use that as our text. And cool, so from here, we're like kind of halfway done. We've got the message for the new hire when they're activated, and that should be built and sent to them. So now we'll move on to creating a message for the user's manager to let them know that they have a new teammate that they might want to welcome and add to channels or reach out, make sure they have everything they need. So we'll go ahead and grab the manager from the user's profile again. And I'm just going to do another read user, same thing as we did before. I just want to grab their Slack ID so that I know that I'm referring to the right user in Slack and that they exist in there, and just kind of make things a little easier for us. Then we're just going to kind of do the same thing. Go ahead and start writing whatever we want our message to be. Maybe I'll do something like a new hire on your team has been activated. Please reach out to, and we'll come back here. And maybe I'll just use the first and last name from their Okta profile for the message. Oh, those got swapped. Cool, that looks better. Maybe I'll go ahead and, in addition to having their name, maybe I'll include their alternate ID again, just as another way for the manager to know who to reach out to. And we'll just finish off our message. Please reach out to them to welcome them to the team and see if they need help getting started. So we can go ahead and customize this output name again, just to make it clear what message we're referring to. Let's call this like manager message, something, just to help make it clear. And now we have our second message kind of built up. I'm just going to go ahead and send a DM to the manager as well. So again, I'm going to use the user ID that I'm getting from Slack. I'll grab the manager's Slack user ID, drag it to the send message, and then I'll take my message and feed it as the text for our card here. Cool, so I think this is kind of enough to get started and test out here. So one thing to point out, I basically always recommend that you should click this box that says save all data that passes through the flow. The reason being, if you don't do that, your flow will run, but you won't have any history to be able to debug or see what happened or go remediate, things that may have happened in the past, or see if there were errors. The only time I'd really recommend that you leave this turned off is if there's maybe sensitive data, like on a user's profile, that you really don't want to be saved in workflows here, but I would generally always keep that turned on. So we'll just go ahead and give this name like new hire welcome message. You can also give a description. So flow welcomes a new user and lets their manager know they've been activated. It's good to try to fill this out. As you build more and more flows, it can become a bit confusing, but all of them are doing, so anything you can do to stay organized is always helpful. So cool, now we have a pretty basic notification flow built out. And so to test it out, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on here. Cool, so we're turned on, we have data saved. And so I'm gonna go ahead and activate a user here. For sake of my demo, I am just gonna kind of reactivate them here, but this should work regardless of if you have a newly created or imported user. Really, whenever they get activated, this flow should kick off. But for sake of our demo, I'm just gonna manually activate this user. So are you sure you want to activate John? Yes, I would like to. We're in kind of this password selection stage. Rather than going into my email and selecting a password and doing all that, I'm just going to go ahead and give them a temp password and get them activated. All right. So now if we go back to our flow, we'll see a few tabs here in the top left. This is where you can kind of navigate between the different views that you'll use when you're working in workflows. Can build kind of a visual diagram of what the flow does and what all the cards that are in it are. Also able to download these if you are trying to show off kind of what, at a high level, what you're trying to build. But the important tab we're going to check out here is execution history. And so this is where you'll go anytime a flow runs. You'll check the execution history, and you'll see all of the executions for your flow. In this case, we have one, and it was a success. It's possible to filter all your executions. You can filter by time. You can even search within a flow. So let's say you've had thousands of these running and you want to look at the message that was sent for Max. You'd be able to search in here. So this is really handy. But we'll go ahead and close this now because obviously we just have this one execution. So we can see on the left here in our user activated, we have a bunch of information. Here's when the flow happened or the event happened. You have an event ID if you need to go correlate something in system log or do more investigation. Yeah, here we see this is me because I'm the admin who activated the user, so we get some of that information. And here is the part that we're actually using in our flow. This is the Okta user who was activated. So John Smith here is the user that I activated. You can see that we are able to read on their profile and pull out any attributes that exist on their Okta profile. And so we use that later on in our message. John here comes in. We're able to take their alternate ID, feed that into Slack to get some more information from the Slack profile. And that feeds all the way down. So we have a success here, sending our message to the user. And then finally, I am their manager. And so we're able to read the manager user out of their Okta profile. Here's our mapping. That worked fine. And then we use the user ID that we grabbed to go ahead and send the message. You can see here's kind of our variables that get dropped in. So John Smith, here's the email. And so let's go ahead and check Slack. I have a new message from Okta Workflows. A new hire on my team is activated. Reach out to John Smith. See if I click here, I'm able to send them a DM in Slack. Could also email them. So it makes it kind of easy to reach out to them and say hi. And let's see, we have one other Slack open. This is for the end user who is activated, John. They're signed in and they got a message saying, hey, welcome to the company. Have a great first day. Reach out to your manager. Similarly, You can click on the manager here, start a DM directly, just like that. Makes it easy to reach out to them. So yeah, that's kind of our new hire welcome use case here. I'll pause for a moment just to see if there's any questions in chat. Or if anyone needs kind of a minute to get caught up with anything that I did here.
Yeah, I didn't see any questions. But also, folks, if you, there is an option for anyone to come on stage, but with or without a video. So if you're interested, you can definitely do that. And again, ask questions if you would like.
Yeah, and feel free to, ambush me with questions that are unrelated to what I just showed. I can try my best to answer. Happy to talk about anything workflows with you all. Yeah, one thing I kind of just want to add an if statement tied to a specific Okta attribute. Yeah, definitely. So let's just like build on our example here. And so we have a number of branching cards you can use. I'm trying to think of a good example, but let's say, gosh, what's on this profile? So yes, let's say, what do I have? Yeah, this seems like a good one to use. Let's say I have this Boolean for is terminated. Let's say that I don't want the flow to run if the user is terminated. Maybe there was a mistake and they're not meant to be activated or something like that. So we don't have the is terminated profile attribute selected yet. So like I showed earlier, we'll go ahead and click choose fields. And I'll go ahead and grab this is terminated value now. And so workflows already knows that this is like a true false value. I'll drag this here into the if else. Say, okay, so if is terminated is, I'm going to change this to a true false as well, just to match. If is terminated is true, and once we select our conditions here, we'll get these two different lanes where you can add more cards. And essentially, one lane will run if the condition is true, and one lane will run if the condition is false. So in addition to just being able to add cards in here, new ones, let's say it's like our case and we want to kind of modify things after we've already gotten started, you can also drag cards in here. So there's a lot of use cases for this. You can use this to say, maybe there's another field that says, is the employee, what's their employee type? Is it a full-time? Is it a contractor? Is it a remote worker versus an office worker? And you could dynamically take different actions based on what you read. One more thing I'll just show quickly for you, Zach. In addition to running if-else, or even if-else-if, where you can set up even more conditions to look at, there's a pretty useful one here called continue if, which I personally get a ton of use out of. So I think this kind of matches what you were saying, like if you want to look at a specific condition and not run a flow because it's something, you read something in an attribute, etc. This is kind of the perfect card to use here. So similar to this, you go ahead and just set up the condition. We'll do something similar. I'll say if the user is terminated flag is equal to true. Actually, no, in this case, it'll be false. I only want to continue on and do all this stuff if the user is not terminated. If they are, we can spit out a little message here, but essentially the flow will just stop here. So this is a really useful one. I use it all the time. You even see people use this card for things like let's just say you want a simple way to test everything on this side of the flow, everything to the left of this card. Maybe you're building and you're trying to add new things to your flow. You want to just kind of validate that things are working before you go all the way down and run all these other cards too. Maybe you don't have your mappings all quite set up yet. You can do something super simple, like just say, if 1 equals 2, we'll continue. In that case, it will never continue, right? So you can get tricky with some of these cards, and the continue if is a good one to know. So I hope that helps, Zach. Yeah, in your case, I would look at the if else or the continue if cards. And yeah, one other thing I just kind of want to emphasize about this example, it's pretty simple. Obviously, I wanted something that was kind of easy to digest quickly as I'm running through things here. Oh, awesome, Zach. Good to hear. But you can take this same example and hopefully start to use your imagination about how you could build on it or use it for other use cases that your org might have. So, just because I have a bit of time here, I'll try coming up with a different scenario. Maybe let's say that a user gets an email or gets something in their account that looks weird to them and they report suspicious activity. You can go ahead and use this very similarly, kick off a flow whenever a user reports the suspicious activity. Kind of like we did before, you could create a message, you can grab details about the event, suspicious activity details, the user ID, date and time, and say something like, hey, security team, please investigate this user's logs immediately. And we could do the same kind of thing and send a message to a channel in Slack. Say, okay, whatever my security channel is here, whatever, these are my kind of dumb demo channels, but go ahead and send something to the general channel in my case. We'll just say, hey, here's the suspicious activity. It was reported by this user at this date. Here's the details. Maybe we'll call the bot sending the message the close security bot. And just like that, you built another notification for a different type of event. So it's really easy to start kind of spitting these out. I love the notification flows because it's just an easy win for your org. It allows you to, I spend all my day in Slack personally, and that's where I want to get real-time quick notifications about things. The other advantage to kind of doing flows like this as you're getting started, there's not really much to lose, right? You're not modifying your production data. You're not touching Okta policies or trying to deactivate users. It's a pretty lightweight way to kind of play around with things and get started. But again, it's very easy to expand on this. Let's say that anytime a user's reporting something suspicious happening in their account, that gives us reason to be concerned. And perhaps we want to go ahead and just proactively clear their Okta session so that they don't have access to resources anymore. You can go ahead and do that very easily. Just add a card, drag the user's ID in, and boom, we'll clear out their Okta sessions across their devices. And so, the point I'm trying to make is that really, again, the imagination is kind of the limit here. You can do a lot of different stuff. You could say, maybe I have a Okta group that is a group that removes privileges and really locks down the user into a tight policy. You could come over here and grab that group ID. Again, excuse my silly demo tenant. Well, I'll just grab maybe MFA monitoring. This is a group that we care about, and we can go and say, okay, I'm going to add them also to this group. Then just like that, in just a few seconds, we built up a flow for a totally different use case. We can alert our team when suspicious activity is reported by an end user. And we can also clear their sessions and add them to a group where they have really locked down privileges. And so, again, just trying to kind of demonstrate that once you get started, you can do a lot of things in here, and your imagination really is the limit. You can do things far beyond simple notifications like we started with. So again, I'll check for any questions or messages here. It's like we just had Zach, and we addressed that already. The one other thing is I have everyone's attention that I'll just show off really quick. As you're getting started, you might want to see just some examples of things that you can look over and kind of inspect. This templates catalog is a really good resource. This is something that my team works on. We build a lot of these ourselves and document them, but we also work with certain third-party vendors or folks from our sales engineering or support communities to kind of build out some of these examples. So for instance, if you're wondering how you could maybe point a Google form to workflows so that it can process submissions and do different things, like maybe write to a table or send notifications again, or what have you. We have a lot of examples in here. I would highly recommend that you check this out. It's very simple. You go in and just look at one that looks interesting to you and hit add template, and it'll just go ahead and create a folder in your workflows instance and install these flows for you. We also build out some documentation that just kind of helps step-by-step walk through, what you need to do to configure things that you can test it out. Try to call out any limitations or things that you might need to know when you're running these for the first time or testing. So yeah, just to close, I think templates are a great resource to be aware of. Definitely go in and check some of those out. See if there's any that look similar to things that maybe you're coming up with as ideas, things that you'd like to try to build. And yes, Max shared the Crowdcast. I would definitely follow our Crowdcast page, and there's meetups of varying complexity levels and topics that you can join. Finally, I'll just give one more plug. I know we have office hours on the bottom of our Crowdcast window here today, but from the Workflows console, that's another one of these community links. And if you ever want to chat with me about something that you're working on or you get stuck, we host these a few times a week, and you're free to sign up with us and give us your questions and come join us live to kind of discuss and show off what you're working on. And with that, awesome. If there's more questions, I guess I'll turn it over to you, Max.
Yeah, I don't see questions, but we'll stay here for another minute or so. But thank you. This was great. This was awesome. We should definitely have you back
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
soon. Yeah, I don't see any questions, but I guess folks know how to find you. I think office hours, right, is the best way to contact
Yeah.
you.
Oh, thank you, Zach. I'm flattered.
I agree,
Yeah,
Zach. No, this was good. So we definitely we'll need to have you back and soon. Um, yeah, we'll schedule something. If you folks have any ideas for topics, please put them in the chat.
yes, definitely.
So
Yeah, I'd love to tailor the next one to whatever folks are most curious about.
very cool. Brian, thank you again. Thank you, folks, everyone, for joining us today. Yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you, everyone. Thanks for joining.